I want to talk today about pride, how pride affects us, and we talk about from the book of Daniel, chapter 4 and verse 18, that Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and he asks Daniel about it, and Daniel sees what's coming for the king and is heavy for him, and he asks him to turn away from his sins. And that question is, are you going to listen to? Are you going to be told? Listen to when you're told what is coming, or are you going to let something happen till trouble comes? And then later on in the same chapter, verse 4, chapter 28, chapter 4, verse 28, Nebuchadnezzar standing over the palace and talking about this great kingdom which he has made. And then God speaks to him from heaven and tells him that he's going to become mad and live like an animal until he realized that God rules over man. We see that happen. He comes and he realizes who the true and living God was, and he had already seen that when he attempted to execute the three Hebrew boys, and he made a warning to to people about what would happen if they were to speak against the God of Israel. And then later on, in the next chapter, you read about his grandson. It says there his son Belshazzar, and he becomes lifted up, and he takes the articles of the temple and uses them to worship his false gods. And then his hand comes out of nowhere, and there's this sign that says he sees a sign, and Daniel's called in to interpret what is said. And Daniel tells him about how his father had realized who the true and living God was, and that he had not done. And I think, God looking at America, realizing, coming to us and telling us about our forefathers, the founding fathers, creating this country, and now we've turned away from what is true. And but he finds that that he's lifted himself up, and as a result, he comes in. The kingdom is he's found weight in the balance is found in wanting. He may have been rich in this world, but he was going into the world as a spiritual, into eternity as a spiritual pauper. And sometimes you don't realize what's coming next. He didn't realize that his life was just really coming to a close, and that the invading armies come in and defeat Nebuchadnezzar, defeat Babylon, and he is taken away into eternity with his family. And there's a warning, in the book of Proverbs. It says, "Pride becomes before destruction, and a haughty spirit uh, before a fall." And people have gone down a destructive path with their pride. We can see throughout, throughout all the Greeks and the Romans, and throughout all the empires of the last 2,000 years. And original sin, it's not eating the forbidden fruit, but it goes back to when Lucifer decided he was going to be like God. That was pride, and then where sin had its beginning. And then he comes through the serpent to tempt the first woman. He tells them, "You shall be as gods." And so it's the same thing. Lucifer said, "I will be like the Most High," and now the serpent is telling the woman, from the devil, that they will be like gods, and they partake. They see it all looks good, and that's what it is. Sin looks so good, but in the end, it's really a bad dream, like a bad dream. And that what happens as a result is that the man and woman have to hide behind God. And Yeshua said something in the new covenant. It was that he who exalts himself shall be humbled; he who humbles himself shall be exalted. And we see, he talks about a parable about a Pharisee and a publican. The Pharisee's talking about all the good things he's done, and then the publican, all he says, "God be merciful to me, the sinner." And Yeshua says that this man, that the publican, went down to his house justified rather than the Pharisee. So let's do like, what Daniel said to Nebuchadnezzar, to get rid of your sins. I saw a sign one time when there was a rally against the filth that was on Times Square in the 1980s. It says, "Get rid of your sin